Be'ez Hashem Yisborach, we begin Parak Shava'asa, the 17th Parak in the Rambam's Hilchos, Issurei, in the laws of forbidden relationships. And we had been speaking about those that are specific to, prohibited to marry into the Jewish people, what's called the Kahal Hashem. Now we get more specific, and those that are forbidden specifically for relationships, that of the Kahanim, and we're going to elaborate on one of them, that of the Gerusha, of the divorced woman. In Halach Av, the Rambam opens up the general category of the 3/4 women that are prohibited to Kahanim, Hadyitim, and then to the Kohen Gadol, which is the widow, the divorcee, the Zayn, and the Chalal. The Rambam says, Shalosh Nashim, Nestra Kolakan. There are 3 women that are forbidden to Olkan to get married to. Grusha, divorcee, Zayn, which Rambam is going to explain in the next parak, V'chalala, and the Rambam is going to explain in the parak after that. Now, the Kohen Gadol Arba, and regarding the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, there are 4 women, which are Elu Ashalish, these 3 women, and Valmana, the 4th one that's added on to the Kohen Gadol, is the widow. Now, this that is added on to the Kohen Gadol is Echad Kohen Gadol Meshuch B'Shem HaMishcha. We're talking about whether the high priest that was anointed with the anointing oil, or that which he just wears the extra 4 garments of the Kohen Gadol, because in the second Beis Hamikdash they didn't have the Shem HaMishcha, but he became a Kohen Gadol by just wearing the extra 4 begadim. And the Echad Kohen Ha'ovid, we're talking about whether it's a Kohen that's currently doing the service as the Kohen Gadol, or Echad Kohen Gadol Shemanu Va'avar, whether we're talking about Kohen Gadol that had been appointed but had been taken out of that post, which that happens when the Kohen Gadol becomes invalid in Yom Kippurim because of a psul of carry, and then they appoint another Kohen to take his place. And then after Yom Kippurim, the original Kohen comes back, so then the second Kohen Gadol who had taken his place has an equivalent status for this halacha of Kohen Gadol. And even though the high priest, which is a unique Kohen that was anointed to fight the wars, which in this halacha is also like a Kohen Gadol, they all are commanded regarding marrying specifically a virgin, and they're prohibited to marry a widow, a woman who had been married already once before. Halacha base. Any Kohen that gets married to one of those 3 women that we mentioned, being Gadol, Ben Hedger, whether Kohen Gadol or the regular Kohen Hedger, Uval, and he cohabits with her, like he gets lashes. But let's say he only cohabits with her through an unmarried relationship that doesn't get married. He's not going to get the lashes for having relations with a Zaina, a Grusha, a Chalala, or because she's a divorcee, or because she's a Chalala, a desecrated woman. Because it says in the Pasuk, they should not be taken, which is until they're taken, which is the terminology of Kedushin, and then having had Biah with them. But just having Biah would not qualify for the lashes. Now, Halacha Gimel, but that's regarding those 3 women. Regarding Kohen Gadol that had relations with a widow, then like Ha'achas, and he would get 1 set of lashes. Even though he did not do Kedushin, Kishnema, the other wording in the pasuk is V'lois Iloi Yichal. He should not desecrate, because once he had cohabitations with her, which he was forbidden to her, he goes and makes her into halala, uvsal kahuna, and he invalidates her into the halachas of kahuna. So that qualifies for the lashes of B'loi Yichal. But regarding those 3 women of the Zayn, Chalal, and Grusha, he's not doing a lo yichal because they already were mechul, they already were profane to get married to a kohen already before he had be with them, unlike that of an almana. Therefore, like a Kohen Gadol levada, bilas aman levada. So only the Kohen Gadol is going to get lashes for just cohabitation with the widow herself. Even though there's no kedushin, again because he profaned her, and that is the prohibition of leichal, not to profane those which are valid. And that isab leichal is not to do it to a woman to make her into halala, and neither to do that to his children when he marries a woman that's forbidden to him. Halacha doubt. Kiddush Kohen Gadol amana ba'ala. Let's say Kohen Gadol, not only did he have Biah with Amana, he engaged her and then had Biah with her. In this case, like Ishtaim, he's going to get 2 sets of lashes. Achas mishum Amana lo yikach, because also regarding the widow, it also says not to take, which is the Isra of getting engaged to and having Biah. The Achas mishum leichal, which we mentioned before, which would even be without Kedushin for not profaning. Now, but whether the Kohen Gadol or the Kohen Hedger who got married to one of these 4 women but did not have Biah, then you're not going to get lashes. It has to be also that there was an act of relations. Halacha hey. Now, wherever he gets lashes, the Kohen, he like it. She also gets lashes. The woman. Where he doesn't get lashes, he ain't like her, she doesn't get lashes either. There's no differentiation between men and women regarding the punishments of negative prohibitions. The one exception is the shivcha charufa, like we explained in Paragimel Halacha Yadal, which the woman gets a different punishment than the man. Halacha Vav, Kol Kohen Haba Goya. Any Kohen that has relations with a non-Jewish woman, and here it's just having relations, Ben Gadol, Ben Hedjed, whether it be a Kohen Gadol or regular Kohen Hedjed, like a Mishum Zaina, he's going to get lashes for having relations with a Zaina, Shari in about Kedushin, because a non-Jewish woman he cannot have Kedushin with. So therefore, the violation is with the act of cohabitation itself, because who also be a Zaina, he's forbidden to have relations with a Zaina, Ben Yisrael, Ben Gadol, whether it be a Jewish harlot or a non-Jewish one, as is in this case. Now, Halacha Zayin HaChalutza, the woman that had chalitza done to her, that which her husband died without any children, she got chalitza from her brother-in-law. Asula coming to receive is forbidden to coin rabbinically. Why rabbinically? It's like a divorcee where the brother-in-law is, so to speak, divorcing her. So therefore, rabbinically, they made it the same halacha. And if he does get married to the chalutza, he gets rabbinic lashes. Now, kohen shenasa sveik chalutza. If a kohen gets married to a woman there was a doubt regarding the chalutza, then we don't remove her from being married to him, and v'hikashera, she doesn't become a savik chalala. V'vlad kasher, her child's also like after the fact, and since we let her stay married, so the child's also going to be kasher. And the reason is initially gazru al savik chalutza. They didn't make exedra abanan, which is what chalutza is, when it's a doubtful chalutza. Ela chalutza badais, the rabbis only made it by definitive chalutza. If the woman was one of these doubts, that if she was a divorcee, or widow, or a zona, or chalala, which is problematic for the kohen hedjit and the amana for the kohen gadol, if there was a suffix regarding, which here it's a suffix deraisa, so we're more stringent, but still ultimately it's a suffix, so we wouldn't be able to give biblical lashes, but we're giving rabbinic lashes. In this case, we do remove her with a get because it's a suffix deraisa, and therefore you're not allowed to be married to such a woman. Now, the Rambam introduces a concept known as Einis Achalalisa. Says Rambam, and the reason why he's saying it is because it relates to these 3/4 women that we're discussing, which are problematic for kohen hedjed and kohen gadol. There's a general rule regarding all prohibitions in Torah. In general, if something is already prohibited, it cannot have a new prohibition take effect. It's already prohibited. Ella, but there's 3 exceptions. If the 2 prohibitions come at the same time, or if there's an Isser that's being added on to that Isser, in other words, where there's other people going to become prohibited into that thing. So we say that since the new Isser is taking effect on other people, which were not prohibited beforehand, it's going to take effect even on the person that was already prohibited in a smaller circle, is going to have now this added prohibition take effect. Or if it's inclusive, other things with this, in other words, if other things that were not originally prohibited in the original thing are being included, more things being included in that original prohibition, so we say that since it's including things that were originally prohibited, even that which were already prohibited originally are going to have this additional Isser too. As Rambam continues, halacha tes, therefore, he picks one of these 3. Because there's halacha known as Isser Meisev, that when you're adding on more people being prohibited in this original Isser, meaning, let's say this woman, who we're going to be describing, is usher to somebody, that original somebody, since there's more people being added on, that's called Isser Meisev, that Isser could be Chal Isser. So therefore that the original one that was already prohibited is going to have these additional prohibitions. So you can have the following cases. Isha Shei Salmana, if a woman was already widowed, her husband once died. Vanasa Grusha, she got married to someone else, and she became a divorcee. And then Vanas Chalala, she became a Chalala, which when she had relations, let's say, with a kohen that was forbidden to her. Vanas Zaina, and then she becomes a Zaina, and then subsequently, after all these stages in her life, then a kohen gadol has relations with her, like Arba Malkis al Biah, so that one act of cohabitation, you get 4 sets of lashes. Because since the amana is forbidden to the kohen gadol and permitted to the kohen hedjed, so that is a prohibition that starts off with the kohen gadol. Says Ram continues halacha yud. So she's already prohibited to the kohen gadol as an amana. But then chazali is grusha. Then when she gets married to someone else and she gets divorced from him, noisav by isser, there's what's called isser meisav. An isser is being added. How? Because now this woman who's already forbidden to the kohen gadol is now being prohibited now to kohen hedjed, who is permitted to amana, but it's forbidden to grusha. So therefore there's another prohibition taking effect on the isser amana to the kohen gadol because it takes effect in the kohen hedjed. Now, but still this woman is permitted to eat truma. There's nothing wrong why she wouldn't be able to partake of truma. But Nasas Chalala, when she becomes Chalala, as we'll describe in a later parak how a woman becomes that, but she becomes that Nisiv Ba Isser. Now, not only is she forbidden to a kohen gadol, and not only is she forbidden to a kohen hedjed, there's a problem with herself that's being added on to her. Sharing this says, but truma, because now as a Chalala, she's forbidden to partake of truma. So it's going to take effect on the kohen hedjed and the kohen gadol, these Isurim too. Now, but Vandain he muteres Yisrael, but still she's permitted to marry to a regular Yisrael. But Nas is Zaina, when she becomes a Zaina, and there's an added idea over here. Hoil v'yesh shams nos, there is a type of znos, there is a type of extramarital affair. Shaiseres al Yisrael, which would make her forbidden on a Yisrael, even a non-kohen. Im zinse ish if someone's wife would be mizana willingly, which, and even though this is not that case, but since there would be such a case that would make her into an Isser Meisav, that would make her into other people, so therefore another Isser taking effect on the Kohen Gadol. So therefore here we have the Kohen Gadol who's forbidden to her first as Amana, then as Gusha, then as Chalala, and then as Zaina. So therefore, when he ultimately has one act of Biah after all these stages, he's going to have 4 sets of lashes for these 4 different Issurim. And what then the Kohen Hedger Shabala Gusha, same thing as, let's say, a Kohen Hedger, regular Kohen, who has relations with a divorcee, Shanas Chalal, who had subsequently become Chalal, V'akach Zin, and became Zaina, should like a Shalosh, al Biah Achas. He'll have one act, they'll have 3 sets of lashes. Now, Av Mishneh says this, but the Rambam says if it's not in the order that we described, in the like Achas, then actually he's only going to get 1 set of lashes, because the other Yisum that come after the Issa Zaina is not really adding, not Issa Meisav, not Issa Kail, it's going to be the general rule of Ein Issa Chalal Issa, which the Rambam is specifically talking about where the Znus was first, because then the Issa Gusha and Chalal are not adding on anything, because it's already forbidden on everyone, even as the Yisrael. So, that it must be talking about the Znus is first, because actually if the Znus is one of the middle ones, let's say for example she became a Gerusha, then the Zaina, then the Chalal, actually there would be 2 sets of lash of a Gerusha and Zaina, because then it would be Issa Meisav, and then he'd be exempt on the Chalala, because again Issa Chalala would not be taking effect, wouldn't be adding on anything new. Halach Yud Aleph. Mishnah's Amal Menashim Harba, but in contrast, let's say a woman became a widow for many men. She met a few husbands, they all died. In discussion with Menashim Harba, she was divorced from many men. Ein lokin la achas called Biah. Whoever has relations with her, any kind would have only 1 set of lashes for every act of Biah, because again, it's the same shame, the same title of that Isser. Don't add on. It's only if a new Isser was being introduced. Now, Almana, this is being called a widow, is Beim and Eretz and Beim and Masu and Asura. The prohibition is whether she was widowed from being married or even just being engaged. Now, Halachi Beis. The Ram now qualifies this prohibition of Almana l'Kohen Gadol. Kohen Gadol, high priest, Shemes Achav, that his brother died. Now, Ava Bishum in the Eretz, and although that it's only from halachic engagement, which the girl is still a virgin, and there's no Isra say of Kim Besul Me'amav Yikach, because he's marrying her as a virgin, still Harizali Yab Mishin do Yibim to his brother's widow, again, because she's not Mana, which has been into Kohen Gadol, and L'chayletz rather does Chalitza. Now, actually, why is there a requirement of Chalitza? Because ultimately, Kedushin would be Taifas, and therefore there is a Zika for Yibum, which actually, the question actually goes the other way. Truth is, he should be able to do Yibum, because that's a mitzvah say, and that's the loisa say of marrying a widow. But the Chama are not to do Yibum Techiv Alavin, because you might do it a second time, and the mitzvah only allows you the first time only. So therefore, he should do Chalitza to his brother's widow. Now, but let's say Nafalo Yavama, let's say his brother died without any children, and she was a Yavama to him. At that time, he was just a regular Kohen. And then subsequently became appointed to become the Kohen Gadol. Even though he did what's called the rabbinic Kedushin of Yibum, which is only kind of rabbinically, he did a Kedushin. He should not ultimately consummate by doing Yibum after he already got appointed to become the Kohen Gadol. Again, because she's an Almana, which is rabbinic as a Kohen Gadol. But Aval Eretz is Almana. But let's say he did a regular engagement, not to a Yavama, to a regular widow, and he was a Kohen Head, which was permitted. And then during the engagement, he was appointed to become a Kohen Gadol. Here, here he could consummate the relationship even after he's appointed to be the Kohen Gadol, because here it's a biblical kinyan. It's not just a rabbinic kinyan like a Maimer, and he already acquired her before he was appointed to become the Kohen Gadol. Now, let's say a woman was engaged a doubtful kedushin, umeis arus, and the man she was engaged to then died. There's a svikam on this, so again, it's a doubt if she's considered as a widow, and then she would be forbidden to a Kohen Gadol to marry her because it's a suffix of a issa dairaisa. And if he did marry her, he have to divorce her again, as Ram said previously in Allah Chazai. Now, Allah Gimel, the Ram continues regarding the positive commandment on the Kohen Gadol. Not only is there is a loise of marrying almana, there's a positive commandment of marrying a naira besula. As Ram says, mitzvah to say al Kohen Gadol. There's a positive commandment on the high priest. He should marry a naira, specifically that age, which is around 12 to 12 and a half. That's a basula, that's a virgin. Now, and mishatigva teasalab. Once she becomes a begeris, which is 6 months after she became an adult, after she became a naira, actually she's forbidden on him. Because when the girl matures a little bit more, her hymens get removed a little bit, and the Torah says bibsula, which you have to have all the basulim, all the virginity there. Shlomo says in the pasuk, but who isha bibsula yikach? He should take a woman that is in her virginity. As the Rambam explains, Isha, a woman means loiketan and not a minor, so it can't be under a naira. And Bifsalewen said with her virginity, B'lei Begeres, which is 6 months later. So Hakait said, how so? So I'm explaining, Yosem Echal Katnas, V'chal Bagris Leiba, has to be that she's not a minor anymore, but she also did not become a Begeres. Zu Naira, that's the specific age. But Naira, that's the positive commandment for the Kohen Gadol to marry. And moreover, he never marries two women at the same time. Because the pasuk says in the singular Isha, a woman, which is Achas, one, V'leish time, and not two. Now, Halachi Daled, a Kohen Gadol Yisa Mukas Eitz. A Kohen Gadol cannot marry a woman that got a wound from a piece of wood, which means to say in her genital area, which removed her hymens because of the wound that she got. He should not marry such a woman, again, because he has to marry a Basula. So, Alpha Bishla Nivela, even though she didn't have relations, but she doesn't have the Basulam anymore. Now, Nivela Shlei Gedarka, let's say she had relations anally. It's like she had relations in the normal way, which again would make her a problem as a Bu'ula, not a Basula. Now, Nivela Behema, but if she had a relation with an animal, as my first one explained, Shlei Gedarka, anally, then she would be permitted because she still has a Basulam, and that doesn't qualify as an act of becoming a Bu'ula. Halachat Ezvav. If a Kohen Gadol does marry a woman that's not a virgin anymore, so he does not get lashes because it's only the violation of the positive commandment of Akim Besula, which Allah Machlal says, although it's what not to do, but it's coming from a positive commandment, which one doesn't get lashes for a violation of a positive commandment. But like any Chivasei, which you're forbidden to be married to such a woman, he would have to divorce her with a get. Let's say marries a Begeres, a woman over 12 and a half, let's say, or a Mukas Eitz, where some type of operation or surgery or whatever removed her virginity. He could remain married to her. Because again, that's not a woman that's actually forbidden to him, if she just wasn't a Basula. Now, Eris Bu'ula ben Nisman Kohen Gadol, let's say he got engaged to a Bu'ula, and he was appointed to be a Kohen Gadol. He could get married to her after he was appointed, like we said in Halachah Beis regarding if he got engaged to a Lamana and became a Kohen Gadol. Same thing over here, when she was a Ba'ula, which was permitted to the Kohen Hedjid, became appointed to be Kohen Gadol, he could consummate that relation because he was already engaged to her. Halachah Design. Let's say on this Naira Basula, let's say he violated a Naira Basula, which is the type of girl he get married to, but he didn't marry her then. He just violated her. Or he seduced her. So even if he did it when he was a Kohen Hedjid, which he would be permitted to marry such a woman, because Kohen Hedjid does not have an obligation of marrying a Basula. But in the Smana Kohen Gadol, Kohen Mishneh, but he ended up becoming appointed to be Kohen Gadol before he married her. He shouldn't marry her. He wasn't engaged to her. If he did marry her, he has to divorce her. Because unlike the previous case, where he was at least engaged to her, then he already acquired her. Here he didn't acquire the woman that he was ma'anos or mafata. Halach Yitzayin. Let's say you get engaged to a minor. If you give him begeres before you get married to her, here he shouldn't marry her. Because here, unlike the other cases of, let's say, when he engaged the widow, and he was appointed to be a Kohen Gadol, there he can marry her after he got appointed because there her body stayed the same, his status just changed. But here her body changed from a katana to begeres, which he's not supposed to marry begeres. So, therefore, he shouldn't marry her. But if he did marry her, he doesn't have to divorce her, because ultimately we said even by Begeres herself, if he violates and marries her, he stays married to, as Rambam said in Halachah Ezvav. Now, Halachah Ches, Rambam introduces this regarding the halacha of miyun, and that of what qualifies as a gerusha. Because says the Rambam, Achas gerusha min eris na'im, being called a divorcee, which is forbidden to a kohen, is whether being divorced from being married or even just being engaged. But if a woman, which is a minor girl who her brother or mother is married her off because she didn't have a father, there she could do a rabbinic halacha, since the whole kedushin is rabbinic, she could do a refusal. So a filigir should be get. So even if she was at one point divorced with a get, Verzira and the man remarried her, and ultimately did a refusal which she could just walk away from the marriage. She's permitted to get married to a kohen subsequently. Like we explained in Hilchos Gerushin Perkei Rav Halacha Design, because any girl that ultimately leaves with mian, even if she had previously had a get beforehand, it's like as if she was never divorced with a get, because the mian undoes that, and therefore she's not considered as a grusha. Moreover, any woman that's not fit for chalitza, let's say he did chalitza's yibama, turns out but she was pregnant, so therefore there's no halacha of chalitza because his brother actually did have a child. If nachletzav she had chalitza, does not invalidate her even rabbinically regarding kuna, because that doesn't qualify as a chalutza. Now, Ram continues regarding what happens if we hear certain rumors regarding a woman. So Yetzal Kal, let's say there's rumors going around the woman that Ish Pleini Kain Kasav Get Leishtoi. That man who's a Kain, that he wrote a get for his wife, which some people, when they say it was given, they just use the word written. Or let's say nothing get Leishtoi, or they say explicitly that, he gave a get to his wife. That's what the word's going around town. But we see that she's remaining married to him and they're having relations. We don't remove her from her husband. Because the rumors, we're not going to remove her, although the rumor is that she's already divorced, which is forbidden to her Kain. Now, but then this is the Kain Achar. But let's say she got married to another Kain after her first husband died, then takes him and then she has to leave that second husband because regarding the second husband, that second Kain, the rumors were before the marriage, and because of this, the substantiated rumors, we don't let her get married to him, and if they did, she has to leave. As in Halacha Chaf, Yetzashma Biah, let's say a word's going out around her in town, which again these rumors were substantiated in the courts, as the Rambam explained in Periktas Halachas of Ishas, that she was engaged and divorced from a previous marriage. So we have to be concerned for those rumors that she's forbidden to with a kain like a Megreshes. Comes around like this Gershon, like this when Hilchos Gershon Perikut Halacha Chaf. Let's say rumor was only that she was a chalutza, then we're not concerned with that because the rumor is only like a suffix, and regarding a suffix chalutza, we said in Halacha Zayin that there is no gezerah, the Rabbanim. Halacha Chaf Aleph. Let's say rumors going around there about a besula, that she's not a besula, that she's not a virgin anymore. We'd have to be concerned for that, and she could even get married to a kohen gadol. Let's say rumors going around that she's a maidservant. Again, we don't have to be concerned for that because that's a psul in the family, and we don't invalidate families unless we have a definitive proof. And she can even get married to a kohen. Let's say words gotten out that she's acting inappropriately, promiscuity in the city. Again, we have to be concerned for her that she was mezana, and if she's not a zaynish, she's admitted to a kohen. And even if her husband had divorced her because she violated the Jewish customs, as the Rambam explained in she was doing certain things inappropriate, or there were witnesses that there were certain highly inappropriate, that's very suggestive of his nus, that witnesses had testified, but they didn't say explicitly that she was mezana. The mace comes she get, and the husband died before he was able to give her a get, because if he did, then she would be a grusha. Rather, she is na'amana now. Should be permitted to a kain. Again, because we don't prohibit a woman because of these things that we said, that either the husband wanted to divorce her because of things, or because of witnesses that said there was some really sketchy things going on. Is brutal unless we have definitive testimony that she was mezana, or if she admits from her own nav that she was mezana.